New year, fresh start, time to recreate myself. What will I find when I walk down this path? New friends, new goals, new challenges to be met. I will meet them and I am going to succeed. New year, fresh start, it's time for self-discovery.
Episode 1. The first day of school. And just like that, Noah Cruz found himself at the start of another new beginning. Just like it had countless times before, a wild and vibrant tension radiated within his core. Noah loved new beginnings because they allowed him the opportunity to start fresh and savor a brief respite from the shadows of his past. He grinned widely as he drew in another deep breath. His gray eyes scanned over the elegant white sign that hung above the large coal-black iron gates. Arceados Academy. This was going to be a great adventure.
Get back here, you nasty bitch! I'm gonna rip your fucking eyes out!
Fuck off, you dumbass! Honestly, you think you can even compare with me? Please! With your grades, you'll be lucky to even graduate.
That's it, bitch! I'm ripping your fucking arms off! Then we'll see who's going to graduate! Ah!
Noah gazed around, and yet he didn't see who was yelling at one another. Several other students stood around, though, and they gazed up into the sky. He followed their line of sight. A pair of students flew through the air, perhaps 20 or 30 feet above the ground. Both of the young women wore Arceados Academy uniforms. Aqua-colored plaid skirts, black knee-high socks, white short-sleeved blouses, and black vests. One of the girls had a pair of giant demon wings, and her eyes shimmered with violent streams of orange energy. The other student was bathed in a lavender aura of magical power, and she zipped behind the demon student with ease. Bright lavender balls of crackling arcana surrounded her balled fists. Every few seconds, the Mageblood student shot out several beams toward the demon. The demon student just zipped around the beams and laughed maniacally. An older male voice called out, and Noah and many of the other students watching the fight turned their attention to him. The man wore a black suit, an aqua-colored tie, and a pair of worn black loafers. This had to be one of the other teachers. The male teacher pointed at the pair of girls.
What do you two think you're doing? This school year hasn't even officially started yet. How can you be fighting already? If you two don't stop this instant, you're gonna get detention. Do you hear me?
Noah chuckled as he watched the male teacher chase after the pair of fighting students. Well, at the very least, this new beginning was more memorable than previous ones. Teaching here was going to be a great adventure, or at the very least, an amusing adventure. Noah had never taught before, and yet here he was, a brand new teacher at one of the most prominent and sophisticated high schools in existence. Not only was it popular with the Mageblood populations of this country, but it was also fairly popular among the other races too. According to the pamphlet that Miss Vottheis provided him upon his acceptance of the position, many of the student body was from Helos, the home dimension of the devils and the demons. A small tinge of unease flickered within him, but it wasn't due to any sort of hatred or racial bias. No, the unease was simply a byproduct of the lingering echoes of what once was. The nervousness returned, and so Noah licked his dry lips and glanced down at his attire. He wore a light gray suit jacket, matching slacks, a white shirt, an aqua-colored plaid tie, a black belt, and a pair of black shoes. A silver ring with barely noticeable engravings hugged his right finger, and a simple golden studded earring was in his lower left earlobe. Noah had short black hair, cool brown eyes, and coffee-colored skin. He carried a briefcase with him in his left hand. He looked like a teacher. That was a start, right?
You got this. Just relax. It's nothing to worry about. We've been through way worse.
After another reassuring breath, Noah stepped past the front threshold and onto the school grounds. A buzzing energy blanketed across his skin for only a second, and then it was gone. Miss Vothuis had mentioned that part too during their orientation meeting. As she had described, the school grounds were protected by light warding spells. Some of the students who had watched the fight moments before started migrating toward the front entrance of the school, while others stayed where they were and talked amongst themselves. The female students wore the same uniform style as the two combatants, while the men wore aqua-colored plaid slacks, long-sleeved coats, white shirts, and aqua-colored plaid ties. A few of the students noticed Noah, but they quickly dipped back into their own conversations with their peers. Palpable excitement and anxiety saturated the air, and snippets of student conversations found their way into Noah's ears. Noah entered through the main doors and then studied the sign nailed to the wall. The sign said the following: Classrooms A1 through A6 to the left, Main Office to the right, Auditorium to the right, Gymnasium to the left, Classrooms A7 through A12 to the right. All visitors and first-time arrivals head to the main office immediately. Students clustered all throughout the halls, forming moderate-sized groups ranging from as small as 2 to as many as 9. And they were positioned in such a way that only a narrow, clear path existed between them. A dull and steady roar of combined conversations wrapped around Masai, and he maneuvered down the right corridor. Many students had already made their way to their homeroom classes, and each of the doorways were opened and inviting to any who should come across. Noah came to a T intersection, and the new hallway led to more classrooms. A water fountain jutted from the wall about 100 feet down the new hallway. As soon as Noah saw it, a powerful thirst clenched his throat. With a calm stride, he made his way towards it. He was about to bend down to partake of the fountain, but then something odd caught his eye. A single student stood surrounded by a cluster of others. The student in the middle had both of his hands balled, and he continuously switched his gazes between his peers. While the surrounding students had dark smirks on their faces, the student in the middle scowled. Noah approached them.
Filthy demon, son of a bitch. Why don't you go back to Hellos?
Yeah, no one wants you here, you freak. Hey, is there a problem here?
All at once, all of the students turned to regard Noah. The deep and collective hardness in the surrounding students' eyes fell away as soon as they saw Noah.
No, sir. We don't have a problem. We were just about to go to our homeroom.
The students stepped away from the one who stood in the middle, but more than one bumped him with their shoulders. He simply stood there until they had all departed, and his eyes fell slightly downcast. Both of his fists were still balled, and they shook ever so slightly with tinges of rage. Noah knew right away that this was a demon student. Like any other demon, devil, or non-human student, the young man had assumed a human form to better fit in with the population. Most people couldn't spot demons, devils, and the like by eye, but Noah could. He was a reasonably attractive young man by teenage standards, and his light brown eyes reflected the frustration that no doubt lorded in his soul.
Are you all right?
The young man bit his lip for a moment and then nodded.
Yes, sir.
He turned to go, but then stopped and peeked over his shoulder. His attention wasn't locked on Noah, though, but just in the empty space beside Noah.
I didn't ask for your help. No offense, sir.
The young man moved away from Noah in the same direction as the group of bullies had. Noah watched the young man go, but then let out a brief sigh. It wasn't easy being a Haloshan student, especially when Purist Mageblood movements cried out for racial purity and exclusion from races coming from other realms. Purist Mageblood families would pollute the minds of their children, and that taint would start to spread at schools like this one. Granted, Arceados Academy was much more progressive than other schools Noah had heard about, but it wasn't totally free from ethnocentrism. Arceados Academy still maintained an excellent reputation, which is why so many Haloshans and otherworldly families sent their children here. Noah smiled, and a degree of warmth whispered in his mind. He walked back down the hallway and toward the main office. The main office had a long wraparound counter that looped around the front of the area. Several administrative assistants sat at various desks behind the counter, and at the moment they were all on the phones. Several doors with glass windows stood along the edges of the main office chamber. Toward the very back of the office stood an elegant door, and hanging above the door was an elaborate light brown lacquered wooden sign. The words, "Headmistress," was etched into the wood. One of the administrative assistants hung up the phone and peered at Noah.
Can I help you?
Hi. Today's my first day, and I just...
Oh, there you are, Mr. Cruz. I was starting to think you had gotten lost.
A dark-skinned woman dressed in a light gray skirt, matching suit jacket, and a light pink blouse approached him. Her dark brown eyes resembled polished chocolate-colored jewels. When the woman smiled, a great and invigorating brilliance awoke in Noah's chest. Her black hair consisted of thick, dark braids. A powerful and strange aura of devilic power beamed from the woman's body. Miss Demi Vathais, executive assistant to the headmistress, approached Noah and extended her hand. Noah gripped it tightly, and she gave him a firm shake.
Welcome to Arceados Academy officially. I am so glad you're going to be a part of our team. I just know the students are going to benefit from your knowledge.
Thank you. I really appreciate this great opportunity, and I promise I won't let you down.
Demi turned to one of the administrative assistants and grinned.
Can you please get me Mr. Cruz's teaching schedule for the semester?
The administrative assistant complied and then gave Noah a copy of his teaching schedule. He glanced down at it and reviewed it. A-Day. First period, Demonic Language 1, Class C5, 8 a.m. to 9:15. Second period, Demonic Language 2, Class B2, 9:20 a.m. to 10:35 a.m. Third period, Arcanite Foundations, Class A10, 10:40 to 11:55 a.m. Fourth period, Planning Hour / Lunch Duty, 12 p.m. through 1 p.m. Fifth period, Devilic Language 3, Class A2, 1:05 p.m. to 2:20 p.m. Sixth period, Devilic Language 1, Class C7, 2:25 p.m. through 3:40 p.m. Seventh period, Devilic Language 2, Class B8, 3:45 p.m. through 5 p.m. B-Day, Demonic Language 2, Class B1, 8 a.m. through 9:15 a.m. Second period, Demonic Language 1, Class C12, 9:20 a.m. through 10:35 a.m. Third period, Devilic Language 1, Class C9, 10:40 a.m. through 11:55 a.m. Fourth period, Planning Hour / Lunch Duty, 12 p.m. through 1 p.m. Fifth period, Arcanite Foundations, Class A5, 1:05 p.m. through 2:20 p.m. Sixth period, Demonic Language 3, Class A4, 2:20 p.m. through 3:40 p.m. Seventh period, Devilic Language 2, Class B12, 3:45 p.m. through 5 p.m.
Do you have any questions or concerns about your schedule?
No, looks great to me. I see that you decided to front-load me with a lot of Hellos language classes.
For a brief moment, Demi's gaze fell slightly, and the warmth from her smile diminished a little.
Yeah, most Mageblood teachers don't know demonic or devilic well enough to teach it to Mageblood students, much less demonic or devilic students.
She chuckled a little, and then met his eye contact.
I guess you could say that I was blessed to find you.
Noah laughed a little too, if for nothing else but the irony.
How about I show you where the teacher's offices are, huh? I'm sure you want to get settled into your desk before going to your first class.
That sounds great.
When Noah had tried navigating through the halls before, he had been forced to squeeze past unyielding groups of students. Though many noticed him and recognized his status as a teacher, very few allowed him greater space. As Miss Votheis strolled down the halls, each and every student stepped out of the way and beamed smiles at her. Miss Votheis smiled warmly in response, but then kept moving at a brisk pace. They climbed the stairwell and went to the second floor, which was designated the B floor. The teachers' offices were located toward the middle of the floor and had two double-door entrances. Large white signs that read, "Teachers' Offices," were above both sets of doors. Miss Votheis opened one door and then gestured for Noah to step inside first. The teachers' offices were actually one large room with 4 waist-high cubicle walls running down the room parallel to one another. 10 wooden desks and chairs lined each side of the wall, which meant each row had 20 teachers' desks on it. Each desk had a waist-high wall between them as well, to perhaps give the teachers some privacy. There were a ton of other teachers within the room. Some of them were at their desks reviewing lesson plans, while others stood about in small groups, much like the students in the hallways on the A floor. They spoke just as animatedly as the students did too. Noah smiled, and a sudden warmth flickered within him. Miss Votheis led Noah to the back of the second row, to an empty desk second from the end.
Here we are.
She gestured toward the desk and then stepped up to the male teacher who sat at the very end of the row.
Mr. O'Malley, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Cruz. He's our new Hellos language instructor, and he's also going to dabble in a little Arcanite foundations as well.
The man shifted around in his chair, noticed Noah, and then stood up. When he did, the man towered over Noah by at least 1.5 feet. He had a broad chest, a pair of thick, corded muscles, and trunk-like thighs and calves. Rather than wear a suit and slacks like most of the other male teachers, Mr. O'Malley wore a pair of black knee-length nylon shorts, some athletic shoes, and a tight white shirt. A whistle hung from the man's neck. Mr. O'Malley had a short brown buzzed hairstyle, but a super thick set of eyebrows. His nose was quite large, and nose hairs curled out from his wide nostrils. He had a pair of shimmering green eyes, and the widest, almost most welcoming smile he had ever seen. The most welcoming smile had been rightfully earned by Miss Votheis, but Mr. O'Malley was a close runner-up. Mr. O'Malley extended a hand toward Noah, and when Noah gripped his hands, sausage fingers curled around his own.
Great to meet you. Glad to see another rooster in this hen house, if you know what I mean. You can call me Gregor.
Miss Votheis stepped back and then pivoted around to leave.
Well, if you excuse me, I have a meeting with the headmistress during first period. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask.
Gregor sat down in his desk, but he stared up at Noah. Even sitting down, the man came up to Noah's chest.
You're going to like it here, Mr. Cruz. It's a great work environment. The pay is pretty decent, and there's never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
The walls of the building shook, and the air rippled intensely. Somewhere, something exploded.
Whoa! What was that?
Gregor fumbled with some paperwork on his desk. His eyes glazed over slightly.
Oh, It's probably another student fight. Don't worry, the Student Hall Monitor Association will take care of it.
Noah pulled out his own chair and sat in it, but he still gazed at Gregor over the top of the cubicle wall. Holy hellos, this guy was huge!
That sounded serious, and you're leaving it to a bunch of hall monitors?
For a brief moment, Gregor arched an intrigued, raised eyebrow at Noah. His large lips curled upward, and then a massive smirk creased his broad face.
Is this your first time being at a magical school? You must not be familiar with the SHMA.
The SHMA? Oh, I get it. And, this is my first experience with a school like Arceados Academy. I attended a different kind of school growing up.
Oh, yeah? Well, the SHMA are made up of 3rd and 4th year students who have mastered a great deal of spells, techniques, yada yada. Think of them as a free police force. Usually, we teachers don't have to step in unless it's really serious.
Does it ever get that serious?
Nah, not in the 5 years since I've taught here, or in my 4 years of attending Arceados.
So, what do you teach?
Isn't it obvious? I am a walking cliché.
Well, since you're obviously an ogre-bred man, I'd say you'd be some kind of coach?
Gregor laughed out loud again, and he slapped Noah on the shoulders. Immense of concussive force rippled into him, and yet Noah just grinned awkwardly.
Ogre-bred? Ha! I wish. I like you, Mr. Cruz. You're alright. Nope. Just a regular old Mageblood. And yeah, I teach physical education and I am also the head Essence Ball coach.
You can call me Noah. I guess I'll leave my lunch here and head off to my first class.
Wait for a moment.
Gregor's voice lowered to a whisper, and he clandestinely peered about at the other teachers around them. Noah did as well, and by the looks of it, no one glanced their way.
Have you ever taught demonic or devilic students?
The moisture in Noah's throat dried up, and he beamed an awkward sort of grin at the larger man.
Well, no.
Listen, I'm not racist, but those kinds of students can be a little more of a handful than regular old Magebloods. Sometimes it's not even their fault, but still, usually whenever there's trouble, one of them is involved.
A thick sheen of filth had started to coat the inside of Noah's stomach and throat. His skin crawled, and a great sense of vulnerability poked into every inch of his body. Nothing good ever came from conversations that started with, "I'm not racist, but..."
If there are any disruptions, regardless of who it is, you need to crack the whip and be strict across the board. If you're too nice to demons and devils, but perceivably overly hard on the regular Magebloods, then the Purists are going to cause a lot of issues for you. Inversely, if you're too lenient on the Magebloods and super strict on the demons and the devils, then you're going to have Kazuna Miyoshi on your ass. And trust me, that's not what you want.
Who's Kazuna Miyoshi? Is she an outspoken student?
No, worse. She's an outspoken teacher. If she thinks you're mistreating any of the Helosian students, especially the mnemonic ones, she'll mess you up.
Thanks for the warning, but I don't intend on mistreating any of my students or playing favorites. I'm sure I won't have any issue with Miss Miyoshi or these purists.
You poor fool. Miss Miyoshi is the kind of, person who's going to have issue with you no matter what. Unless you're a demon. Wait, are you a demon?
No, I'm not.
Gregor's facial muscles relaxed a little, and he let out another awkward chuckle. He collected his papers on his desk, rose, and then started to head toward the doorway leading out to the hallways.
Well, good luck, and welcome to Arceados Academy. I'm sure you're going to be a great addition to the team.
As soon as Noah left the offices, he brushed aside his discomfort. He climbed the set of stairs to the 3rd floor, the C floor, and then approached his first classroom. Noah's heart trembled a little bit, and he placed his hand on the surface of C5's sliding door. This was it, the really real start to his teaching career. Despite the fact that he had done so many other things in his life, this particular adventure seemed a little more intimidating than the others. Surely he would be fine, right? He slid the door open and stepped inside. Seconds before, the entire room had been dominated by energy-filled conversations from the various groups of students. However, as soon as Noah stepped inside, everyone stopped and then regarded him at once. A sudden silence fell over the students, and then they drifted to their respective seats. The weight of their attention pushed against Noah's senses. There were 25 students inside the room, seated in 5 rows spanning the room. Noah smiled at all of them, and only a few of the students returned his polite gesture. He walked over to the desk located at the front of the room and placed his briefcase on it. A whiteboard spanned the wall behind him.
Drakisil, von Dugan, Misko, Tuingla, Escorta, Noah Cruz. Exteas, Abamos, Siente, Sechkar Yon.
More than half of the students gave Noah slightly squeamish and uncertain expressions, while the remainder appeared unbothered by his statement.
For those of you who don't know demonic, I said, "Good morning, class. My name is Mr. Noah Cruz, and this class is Demonic 1.
Noah opened one of the desk drawers and gazed inside. There were several wet erase markers of different colors inside the drawer, and rather than take the black one, Noah took the green-colored marker. He started writing on the board. As he did so, he silently marveled at the script of the words. The demonic written language was composed of elegant and sharp lines that flowed together to form a singular, intricate line. Once the sentence was etched upon the board, he turned around to regard the students once more.
Some of you already know what this says, but I'm going to assume that most of you don't. And even if you know what it says, you probably don't know its real significance or why it was said. By the end of the semester, you'll all know why this phrase is so significant.
A soft murmur rippled through the class.
Please take out your textbooks and turn to Chapter 1. Greetings, class. My name is Mr. Noah Cruz, and this is Arcanite Foundations.
Good morning, Mr. Cruz.
As Noah glanced over the faces of the students, a sudden spark of recognition flickered in his mind's eye. He had seen 3 of the students sitting toward the back of the class earlier that morning, crowded around a lone demon student. His eyes met with theirs, and yet they showed no sign of unease or shame. In fact, they stared at him just as blankly and dispassionately as the others did.
So, let me start off with a simple question. Where does a person's magical energy come from?
For a brief moment, none of the students reacted to his inquiry, and then a student on the right side of the room raised her hand. She was a bright-eyed young woman with an eager smile, big poofy brown hair, and a discernible delight melting from her. She had green eyes. The young woman sat towards the back of the row closest to the window, second seat from the back.
A person's magic comes from the melding of their soul energy and their mind.
Noah grinned at her and then opened his mouth to give her praise on her answer. However, before he could do so, a warbled, disembodied voice trembled in the air above the class. It had a muted quality to it, almost like distant thunder.
Demon slut.
Whoa! That is unacceptable, and that will not be tolerated in my class.
The students weren't looking at him, however, but instead at the demon student who had answered the question. She whirled around to look at the class, specifically at the cluster of Mageblood students toward the back of the room. Streams of emerald green energy flowed from her eyes, and her face had become flushed with crimson.
Who said that?
One of the students who had confronted the young male demon student that morning leaned forward in his seat. A greasy douchebag smile creased his face. He had short brown hair, cut in a crew-cut style. When he smiled, the Mageblood's teeth beamed with unnatural whiteness, and it was obvious that his skin had been magically enhanced to be blemish and wrinkle-free. The student was tall, lanky, and had a huge Adam's apple bulging out from his throat.
Don't get your panties in a bunch, honey. It was a joke.
The demon student took a step closer to him.
Honey, I got your honey right here.
A vibrant sphere of green magical energy encapsulated her left hand, and the light around the sphere darkened and was swallowed by its radiance. Magic flowed into Noah's throat, and his vocal cords vibrated with enhanced vigor.
Enough!
Tremors from Noah's voice brutally savaged the air. All of the students locked gazes on him. The walls, ceilings, floors, and desks shook in unease as the voice passed over them. Each and every one of the students sank in their desks, perhaps hoping to find some seclusion from the very scary voice Noah had just unveiled. With the exception of the demon student. She cowered where she stood, and both her rage and visible magic energy disappeared instantly. The prickish smugness on the Purist Mageblood student's face had also been swept away beneath a mask of concern. Amidst the concern, elements of dark resentment started to burn softly. A wave of sheepishness fell over Noah, for he had not intended on using magic to amplify his voice. He simply wanted to get the student's attention. Noah glared at the Purist student who spoke.
I won't tolerate such disrespect in this class. If it happens again, then I'll discover who the culprits are through my own magic, and you will be dealt with severely. Racism, sexism, and shaming are unacceptable.
Noah turned to the demon student who was standing, and he gave her a slight bow. That gesture caused several of the students to give out ever so slight gasps.
Young lady, I'm sorry for what was said, and I promise that it will not happen again. Your answer was intelligent and insightful. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
And what is your name, miss?
Nosa Bajento.
From somewhere in the room, a female student said something loud enough for everyone to hear, but not so clearly enough for Noah to identify her.
Demon lover.
When Noah gazed at the Mageblood students, they all gave him the same blank,
I'm not ratting out my friend,
sort of expressions.
Let's continue, shall we? Who can tell me one of the 9 laws of magic?
This time, a much longer silence lingered before someone answered Noah's question. Noah stretched his arms a little and he walked around the perimeter of the school. Miss Vothuis explained to him during his orientation that every teacher had to do a lunch duty twice a week in order to assist with keeping things safe. The Student Hall Monitor Association, or SHMA, also patrolled the grounds, making sure that students followed the rules and such. The SHMA students wore black armbands around their upper arms, around their biceps specifically. As he started his lunch duty session, Noah noticed several mousy-looking SHMA members giving offending students who were twice their size the business. To be honest, it was actually quite amusing to watch. Noah rounded the corner of a building and noticed a large group of students standing behind a cluster of trees. He approached cautiously and stealthily. A wild silence gripped the crowd, and they watched 2 smaller groups in the middle of the circle. The 2 group sizes were 11 Magebloods in one group, and 8 demons and devils in the other. The Purist Mageblood student from his Arcanite Foundations class stood at the head of the 11, while the demon student named Nosa Bajento stood with another female student, who was the apparent leader of the 8. The female student leader had her arm draped around Nosa's waist, casually. The demon student leader had long black hair that had been tied into a braided ponytail, the end of which nearly touched the ground. She had brown eyes, and she was an inch shorter than Miss Bajento was. Just like in class, the greasy douchebag smile spread on the purest male Mageblood student's face. Someone in the crowd said,
"Teacher."
For a moment, the students whipped their heads to verify who the teacher was. However, their interest was lost as most had not met Noah officially yet. Once more, the crowd focused on the two groups. The female leader of the group of 8 spoke.
I'm not gonna tell you again, Phaedron. Say sorry or else.
Or you'll do what? There are 11 of us and only 8 of you pathetic, hellos, ash trash pieces of shit. You think a teacher's gonna stop us from putting you in your places?
Come on, Christy, let's just let it go.
Let it go? Hellos, no! These self-absorbed Mageblood pricks can't get away with disrespecting you like that! It's fucking bullshit!
Several of the other demon students gave their agreements. Noah stepped out into the open space closer to the students, and he held his arms out wide. The students in the crowds whispered and buzzed with anticipation. Dread-soaked hate saturated the air.
That's enough! No one's going to be fighting anyone!
The student named Phaedron never took his eyes off the demon group. His smile grew even more wicked.
With all due respect, sir, demon-loving teachers should stay out of Mageblood business, unless they want to get hurt. We wouldn't want that to happen now, would we?
Christy's body became bathed in a violet, fiery aura.
I don't give a fuck about him! You had your chance! Let's go!
No! Stop! No!
Once more, Noah's vocal cords vibrated with profound magical energy. However, unlike last time, heightened teenage angst polluted the air like miasma. The two groups charged at one another. Magical auras surrounded students. Arcane orbs of energy swirled around balled fists, and spells began to manifest in various forms. Arcane bolts and rays zipped about, barely missing both the combatants and the onlookers. The students in the crowd screamed, but more so out of surprise and delight, rather than actual fear. They cheered and yelled as they either ducked lower or casted protection spells for themselves. One demon student launched a wide tongue of fire at a Mageblood student, but the Mageblood student conjured a floating sphere of water to extinguish the fire as it came closer. Several Mageblood students summoned energy whips, and they proceeded to attack a couple of the demons and devils. Christy and Phaedron were locked in a sort of reverse tug-of-war with beams of magical energy, trying to push into one another. While Miss Magento had been a reluctant participant before, her eyes glowed with energy, and she blasted at several of the other Magebloods. More often than not, the arcane bolts, rays, and magical attacks collided with energy shields or other kinds of barriers. Explosions rocked the air. Noah screamed for them to stop again, but no one paid him any mind. The students in the crowd cheered even more excitedly, and they drowned out his voice. A devil student had grown twice her size, and she punched at several of the Magebloods who surrounded her. She connected with one of them, and the Mageblood went flying over the crowd of observers. 2 Magebloods had conjured glowing magical weapons, a sword and an axe, and they were bashing against an arcane bubble of one of the demon students. Cracks had formed up and down the bubble, and the demon student cowered. Noah's insides sloshed with acid tension. He glanced about, but he only saw the dancing and gyrating forms of the students in the crowd. The bubble broke fiercely, and one of the Mageblood students slashed at the demon student. A massive wound had been opened up on his side, and he fell to the ground. The other student stepped up over the quivering demon, and he raised his weapon high. Noah summoned his magic, his real magic, and his hands glowed in an eerie silver-colored illumination. The chaotic excitement of the observers died away instantly, and Noah's voice carried loudly. The words danced out past his lips. Noah slammed both palms flat on the ground, and then willed his spell into existence. Dozens of silver chains burst from the ground where the students fought. each with shackles at the ends of them. The shackles shot forth, latching onto the students' wrists, necks, ankles, waists, and any other body part. As soon as the shackles closed, the chains pulled tightly back into the earth, locking the captured student in place. Within seconds, each and every one of the 18 combatants had been restrained tightly. On average, each student had about 4 shackles gripping them. The chains themselves glowed with a constant silvery light. No one said anything, and all eyes were on Noah.
I told you to stop.
Get out of the way, SHMA coming through. Out of the way or you'll get detention.
The students rapidly moved out of the way, and 4 older-looking students stomped up to where all the fighting had been taking place. They wore the standard-issued black armbands. As if they were part of a hive mind, all 4 students had rage-filled eyes, tight-lined mouths, and balled fists. There were 3 female students and 1 male student. When they got to the circle, they stopped and regarded the cluster of chained students.
Who casted this spell?
I did.
Immediately, the fire from the SHMA members' faces faded, and they relaxed ever so slightly. Though they were not angry anymore, they still maintained themselves with the rigidity that would have made military sergeants proud.
Oh, well, thank you, sir, for stepping in. We apologize we didn't get here sooner. Would you mind releasing your spell?
Noah nodded and then snapped his finger. The chains evaporated and turned into mist, and just like that, the students were free. The male SHMA student went to the injured demon student, while 2 of the other female SHMA members started berating the others who engaged in the fight. A look of absolute mortification creased Miss Bagento's face.
We'll take it from here, sir.
Noah nodded again and then walked away from the site of the fight. The students in the crowd gave Noah a wide berth, and not a one uttered a sound.
Thank you for waiting. The headmistress will see you now.
Swirling despair sloshed around in the pits of Noah's stomach. He rose from one of the main office waiting chairs. Reluctantly, Noah met Miss Votheis's gaze. Though she had warm, vibrant eyes, Noah knew this wasn't going to be a good talk. For the remainder of Noah's afternoon classes, an unspoken shyness had taken hold of the students. It was only when Noah forced them to answer that the students engaged with him at all. And the way that the students looked at him, it was unsettling to say the least. Noah stepped past Miss Votheis, and as he did, she patted his shoulder.
Hey, don't look so worried. She isn't going to kill you.
Noah swallowed hard. He tried to laugh back, but it came out as a warbled whimper. Miss Votheis gave off another slight giggle, perhaps to share her bubbliness with him. He entered the headmistress's office. The office had multiple large windows that let in the fading sunlight. Dusk was quickly approaching, especially since it was about 5:30 p.m. Headmistress Emily Darboux sat behind a large, dark wooden desk, and she had her fingers laced upon the desk. Headmistress Darboux sat in a large, high-back, red leather chair, and judging from where the top of the headmistress's head rested on the chair, she was no doubt a tall woman. She had light, white-colored skin, as if she were some kind of golem made of cream. A pair of dark brown eyes centered on him. She had a wide pair of lips that no doubt created wonderfully large smiles when she was pleased. At the moment, Headmistress Darboux was not pleased. Her short dark brown hair matched her eye color.
Please take a seat, Mr. Cruz.
A pair of chairs rested in front of her desk. Noah sat down in one of them.
Mr. Cruz, please help me understand why you had to use magic on our students.
Savage silence blasted between them for a few seconds, and Noah's heart raced. His answer leapt from his lips.
2 groups of students were fighting, and there weren't any SHMA members to step in. The combat started to get ugly, and so I did what I had to stop them.
Headmistress Darbo peered at him for a long moment. But then she let out a little sniff through her nose.
Do you know why we have policies that require the SHMA to be the first line of defense?
To allow for the students to have greater responsibility in school administration?
No.
The headmistress averted her eyes, and she allowed her gaze to delve into the space between all things.
It is one matter to have school-approved students policing other students in specific and controlled methods. It's another matter entirely when a teacher uses a powerful spell of unknown origins to discipline students, even if it is to restrain them.
Noah's throat burned with desert-like dryness.
I have already received multiple complaints from some of the parents of the Mageblood students whom you restrained. Not only that, but I have also heard that many of the demon students included in this afternoon's altercation are unnerved by you.
Unnerved?
Headmistress Darbo narrowed her eyes and she leaned in closer.
What language did you speak your spell in?
Excuse me?
The corners of Headmistress Darbo's mouth formed the barest hint of a smile.
The language you used. None of the other students recognized it. It wasn't Arcanite, and it certainly wasn't one of the two Helosian languages. I was under the assumption you casted spells in Arcanite, but apparently that's not the case.
Ma'am, if you recall from my resume, I speak 12 languages, and I've studied magic in all of those tongues. Everything happened so fast, and a student was cut open, so I just cast the first relevant spell that came to mind. I don't remember what language I might have used.
Headmistress Darbo's eyes narrowed a little more, and she sat back in her leather chair. She drew in a deep breath.
My assistant, Miss Vautheis, assured me that you would be a wonderful asset to our school. Your knowledge of the Helosian languages are quite impressive. However, I still cannot ignore the grievances of some of our Mageblood parents.
Noah's insides throbbed with nauseated acid, and he pressed the back of his tongue to the roof of his mouth, in case he had to hurl. Of all the things he had overcome in his life, why all of a sudden did this experience make him the most anxious?
Under normal circumstances, you would be terminated.
But these aren't normal circumstances?
A bright smile spread across Headmistress Darbo's face.
No, these are not. You saved lives today, and because of that, you will be spared termination. The student who was injured was a demon student. Had you not acted when you did, then he would have been killed by the pair of Mageblood students. Under some rigorous questioning, both students admitted they were trying to kill the demon student. They've both been expelled.
But Headmistress, all of the students were trying to kill one another. In fact, one of the students sent forth a stream of fire to roast another.
While that may appear to be the case, the students, aside from the pair previously mentioned, were not actually trying to kill one another, but simply assert dominance. It is to my understanding that you had not attended a school like Arceados Academy in your youth. Is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
Fights such as these are commonplace at schools like Arceados Academy. We, as both educators and individuals who went through similar experiences, recognize them as an inevitability. We do our best to minimize the damage and devastation that is often born out of teenage angst. After each incident, we carefully analyze intent. Those two Mageblood students wanted to kill, and so they are no longer welcome at Arceados Academy.
I see. So is the demon student okay?
Yes, he is. I admire your interest in his well-being, as well as your efforts to stand up against the unfortunate culture of racism we have here.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have always found such distaste with the purist mindset. Despite my best efforts, it is still an ever-present thorn in my side.
The headmistress paused and leaned over her desk again.
You are not from Helos, are you?
No, ma'am.
Then I am quite curious as to why you're so well-versed in the Helosian tongues.
Well, I've also mastered the languages of the Fae, the Dejani, the Kami. the Armethians, and Giant Speak as well. I've always loved languages, words, and script. There's great power in words, both spoken and written.
So, you are a linguist, then? Nothing more? Huh. I think not. There are more mysteries hidden within the folds of your soul, but I am content with discovering them on another day.
She gestured to the door of her office.
I assume you will be returning tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am. I would like that very much.
Good. Welcome to Arceados Academy.